It's time now for Media Watch. James Creedon joins us. James, good evening to you. We normally in this slot have quite a fun exchange and enjoy what's been going on, what you found online. Today, of course, the news dominated
sad
by
news.
A very, very sad story.
That's true, and it's certainly been the story that has dominated the French news today. And indeed, it's got a lot of reaction around the world. This is the death, of course, of Gilles Jacquier, a special correspondent, a reporter for France 2, state broadcaster here. And so we'll start, Mark, with a look at the 8 p.m. news bulletin here in France this evening for the network that he worked for. That's France 2, France Télévisions. And here you can see David Pujadas. He's the main evening news anchor. And he starts with a very emotional tribute, actually, to Gilles Jacquier, saying normally the news is upsetting, but tonight it directly concerns us, he says. And he says that he died trying to inform the public, trying to inform you, of course, working for the public service broadcaster. He was one of the best, one of our own, he said, and we're bowled over and shaken. And then they went on to play some of those pictures from Homs, that city in Syria where he died. So it was a very emotional start to that news bulletin this evening on France 2, and I suppose had a lot of people tuned in to see what the actual channel he worked for had to say about this tragic news. If we take a look online now, Mark, a lot of reaction as well from journalists he worked with. This guy Olivier Siu saying that pas envie de faire des phrases. No, I don't really want to even write about this. We're all shocked, he said. But it's true to say that he was a grand reporter, as in a great correspondent, a special correspondent.
Just to explain to people, a grand reporter is the title given to correspondents in France. So the French equivalent of correspondent would be grand reporter. So
So he's playing on the word grand,
saying obviously a big person, a big presence.
Absolutely, and saying that he was un chouette collègue, a wonderful person to work with, a wonderful colleague. Then over at TF1, the rival private sector news channel, where they also have an 8 p.m. news, the main evening anchor there sent her condolences and her sympathies via Twitter from TF1 to all those working at France Télévisions. And then you can see even in CNN you have Hala Gourani extending their condolences. So across the media world, this really did strike people. You have then here this guy, he works as a human rights activist, self-proclaimed at least, and a journalist in Syria. He says that Gilles Jacquier should be seen as a freedom martyr, and the name of streets and streets should be named after him. Indeed, so you can see there are tributes pouring in to this man.
I have a couple of colleagues, former colleagues and friends who knew Gilles Jacquier, and obviously they've said how disturbed they are by what's actually happened. It's a thing that's touched many people.
Absolutely.
Normally we get things coming out of Syria online, things coming from activists, those kind of things. Has there been any sign of anything coming out? Obviously there's one tweet there. Any other things?
Well, the thing is, the Syrian state television was the first to report on this, because he was, if you could say, somewhat embedded with an official Syrian expedition into this town of Homs. So the Syrian news was the first indeed to report it, and then it was picked up by the international media. The French media were slower to give out his name because there was a greater degree of respect, I suppose, for his family being informed first. But actually, a lot of websites such as Storyful and even The Guardian had named him sooner than the French media had, although all of this happened in a very quick space of time. You can see also here online, Mark, La Stampa had news. It was really on all of the media today, and they have a quote by him in their first paragraph there. I find war horrendous, yet on the ground you get to meet real people. Most of the time people are just themselves. So he was somebody who covered war, as we've been showing in the news bulletin, for 10-20 years. He'd been to all of the hotspots in the last 20 years, conflict hotspots. So he was very experienced. And if we could just show a couple of pictures now as well, Mark, of when he was in Afghanistan. I think these pictures can roll us out. And these pictures were shot in 2009, I believe, and for the Envoyé Spécial show. Now, he was actually in Syria reporting for that same show. It's a kind of a special reporting broadcast, basically. And I suppose it's worth pointing out that the journalists Stéphane Tepanué and Hervé Guéquière, who they also worked for that same show. They got a lot of coverage as well last year, and I think we have photos of them here. Those two, they were released from captivity in Afghanistan last year. So the show has had its fair share of tragedy, I think it's fair to say, even though it ended well with these two. They were released last June.
James, thank you. Reaction online to the death of Gilles Jacquier in Syria. James, thank you very much indeed. That concludes Media Watch.